We had a company vote, and Jeff Heflin was the deciding vote. And we said, Jeff Heflin, it's up to you. Does Charles Jeffrey Stevens keep his job, or does he go to the unemployment line? He said, out. I mean, I'm still as surprised as anyone is. So, no, Jeff is still out touring the world. Last I tracked his flight, his jet was above Taylor Swift's.
Sorry to say it. Wasn't he just here yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here yesterday, but today he's not. That's how the life of a mover and shaker works, Seth. Okay? You spend any time with Jeff Stevens, you're going to find out that just because he's here today doesn't mean he's here tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay? He's the David Copperfield of village caregiving. This guy's an illusionist. He may appear during this podcast.
Okay. Bring him in the Zoom, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh, wouldn't that be something?
In a plane.
If we just brought him in right now. Well, yeah. So this is I haven't done very many video podcasts here, the Secret VCG Experience, without the main host, the talent of the team, Jeff Stevens. But we're carrying on in his absence. We're grieving his absence, but I think together we'll have the strength to make it through.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, man, welcome into the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you work, and what you do at Village Caregiving.
My name is Seth Kelly. I work at the Barbersville location. I'm a registered nurse, but I also do director of operations role as well.
Okay.
I work with Jeff Heflin, David Job, and Heidi Phillips.
Wow. What a crew.
Yeah.
Cool. So you work at Barbersville, the OG of Village Caregiving.
Yep.
The home office, the first of many. What's some other terms that we could use here? Let's see how many we can get going.
I call it the OG.
The OG, the first office, the original.
Man, I don't know.
Anyone got any other?
Headquarters, that's what I call it.
HQ. Well, that's kind of
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I call the castle HQ.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of different because we have those. What was you? The home. Just the home office. Yeah. So we're up
The
to
most important office.
the most important office.
In the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of that. Okay. So is there anything else that we could think of to call it? The house that Jeff Heflin built.
Yes. I call it the OG because I always call Hef the OG village caregiving employee, which I don't think he was like the first.
He should have
But
been.
I think of him as the OG
Yeah.
village caregiving employee.
Jeff Heflin. We could spend a podcast.
Yeah. I
this
tried
guy.
to get him to come down.
Did you try to trick him into coming down?
I told him that, if me and him were here together, with you, and he thought Jeff would be here as well, but that it would be fun.
Yeah.
We'd keep it flowing. There wouldn't be any sort of odd, silences or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to talk about Hef, we can discuss.
I did a home visit with him. Me and you share this. We're both nurses at Village Caregiving. And I did a home visit with him once. And the gentleman asked us, he had a dog in his home, and he asked Jeff to make sure that he left the bathroom door open because that's where the dog got its water from. And Jeff went in there and looked around. He's a big animal guy.
He is.
He's a
Cat
huge
guy.
animal
Big
guy.
cat guy.
Yeah. And couldn't find a water bowl in there. And so he comes out to advocate for said animal. And this gentleman said, well, yeah, he gets it out of the well in there. He said, the well? He stuck his head back in there and quickly realized the well was the porcelain well. And that's where the dog received its hydration from. Boy, was he not happy with that outcome, as you can imagine. But yeah, man, what a great guy. I got to share an office space with Jeff Heflin for basically a calendar year.
I've heard.
Yeah, we were out front together. There was a half wall there. It's still there. And if you ever visit the home office, which you get to do every day, he would occasionally have a picture of different people. Sometimes they were political figures. Sometimes they were people that worked at Village Caregiving. And he would hold it over the wall and use a voice that sounded nothing like this person to deliver messages from, let's say, the governor at the time or the president or whatever. He's a fascinating guy.
He is. I thought he didn't like me for like the first month. And then one day, something happened and something clicked, and me and him became pretty good friends. We're pretty close now. We work together a lot because we do trainings a lot together. Coinciding with each of our schedules and stuff. And he's helped me a lot, and he's taught me a lot about village caregiving.
He's a great ambassador for village caregiving, and just a great guy, great friend. And I'm with you. His trust and friendship doesn't come unearned. You got to spend some time.
And he tells it like it is.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So tell us a little bit about you. Who's Seth outside of village caregiving?
So outside of village caregiving, I have a 2-year-old son.
Okay.
Another son on the way.
Awesome.
And pretty much I lead a pretty boring life. I, come to work, go home in the evenings, spend time with my wife and my son, and that's about the extent of it. My hobbies have dwindled now since I've become a dad.
Yeah.
I used to have all kinds of hobbies. Now my sole hobby is fishing.
Okay.
And that's really what I spend most of my time doing outside of work.
Who was I talking to today? I was talking to someone before we got on the podcast, and I told them that you were coming down on the podcast, and they said, who was I talking to?
Maybe Zach, I don't know.
Maybe it was Zach. And I said that you were coming down, and they said, make sure that you talk about fishing. Right? So we did predict that part, correct? And said specifically in the state of Michigan.
Correct, yeah.
It was
Correct.
Zach. It's coming back to me now.
Yep.
And he said, does that make you think of what was the Netflix show, The Making of a Murder, that documentary? Yeah. Which I thought was a weird thing to go, which I thought maybe you had some criminal history that I needed to dive into.
No.
But he said no, it was primarily because that was focused in Michigan, and that's where you do most of your fishing.
Yes, it is.
What is it that's special about a fish in Michigan versus a fish in, say, Kentucky?
Well, I like to target smallmouth bass.
Okay.
And the farther north that you go,
Yeah.
the better the fishing gets. And
Hold on. When you say that, the better the fishing gets, is it the more opportunity to get a fish? Is it a better quality of fish?
Both.
Both.
Correct.
The
Yep.
further north you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
And is that just smallmouth in this conversation?
Yes, primarily.
Okay.
Yes, for smallmouth, definitely. Farther north you go, the better it is.
How did you get into fishing? Bill Dance?
Really, I used to fish a lot when I was younger with my dad.
Okay.
And then when I started playing sports, got out of it.
Yeah.
And then when I went to college, I was like, I need to, find something to do again, and that's what I picked up was fishing, and it just became an obsession.
Really?
Yeah.
And is the obsession to spend as much time doing it? Is it to catch as many fish? Is it to catch the biggest of the small fish?
So since I've been doing it a while,
Okay.
Going out there and just catching them is not as great as going out there and targeting big ones. You're always out there to try to catch your personal best. So that's, part of the chase.
Yeah.
Part of the excitement.
To get that PR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know why the audience is laughing. I'm clearly well versed
In the fishing world, it's called your PB,
in your.
personal best.
That's okay. I thought bass was going to be in there somewhere.
Nope.
They really missed an opportunity there.
No.
Okay. How mad were you? I wonder if you took off time from work when this happened, when those two conniving people shoved the little sinkers in those little fish's bellies to make them
It's funny that
weigh
you know
more.
about that.
Oh, are you kidding me?
That it?
We got weights and fish! There we go!
Look, if anything, I know the news.
So-
this is bad. But
So
yeah.
that is actually a walleye fishing trail, not a bass trail. I would be willing to bet that has 100% happened in a bass tournament somewhere.
100%.
And yeah, I'm not a big tournament guy. I enjoy going out there and going at my own pace.
Okay.
I catch and release only. So I'm not a big tournament guy. That took place in a tournament, but I could definitely see if I was to be in that tournament. I'm not sure how those guys were able to make it out of the parking lot.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a rallying cry.
Yes.
We were 3 minutes away from
Yeah.
putting sinkers in their bellies.
Yes, exactly. And coming to find out, one of the guys got arrested, or I think they went to court.
Yeah.
You know, I think they took their fishing license away, which I felt was not a suitable, punishment. I felt like they should have went to jail.
Okay.
But coming to find out, one of the guys was also printing counterfeit money and using it after the fact. So he didn't learn his lesson. So
why are there so many shady people drawn to the angling?
I don't know. Since COVID started, fishing has just went through the roof. It's crazy.
I like to fish. I'm not an angler. I've worked that word in twice now.
I am. Me and Zach are organizing a trip that you're welcome to join in on to Michigan. Actually,
To Michigan.
Correct.
Well, the further north you go, the better the fish.
exactly. I've told Zach this. If I was single,
We're going to have to cut that part. Continue on.
no, I've told my wife this too. If I was single, had no children, I would gladly move to any village caregiving location in Michigan.
Wow.
It's just so I could have the ability to
be there.
close
Okay.
to the fishing.
I'm not making this part up, which I hate. I have to say that as often as I do. That's probably says more about me than I wish. But anyways, we were on vacation one time, me and my wife and our kids, and we were at the beach, and there was this nice couple there, and we get to talking. I sound like Forrest Gump. I get it. There's nothing we can do about it. And so my accent usually invites people to be like, where are you all from? And I'm like, just guess. It's probably going to be close. And so no one ever guesses Ohio. You know what I mean? It's too far north for what I sound like. But we're like, we're from Ohio. They're like, so are we. And I'm like, clearly a different part, right? And so they get to talking, and they were from like Georgia. And her husband had been she was a pharmacist, and her husband had always been a professional carpet layer. But this guy had a dream of running a fishing boat, one of these like tour boats to take people out fishing on Lake Erie. And she's like, one day my store was closing and they were going to move me to a different store as a pharmacist. And I said, do you have anything open like in northern Ohio, Michigan, Lake Erie area? And they're like, we have this one store open, but no one would ever want to go there. It's a small town, blah, blah. And she's like, I came home and told my husband, sell your carpet laying tools. We're buying a boat, and off they went.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, if your wife could walk in one day and be like, Seth, sell your stethoscope.
We're going to Michigan.
We're going to Michigan.
Yeah, we actually. I don't want to get off topic here, but
We can't.
We
There's-
actually
you
we
can't.
actually
Yeah.
vacationed to Lake Charlevoix in the very tip of Michigan last year, almost to the UP. And I would move there tomorrow.
Really?
It was
right
amazing.
now, there's probably a graphic loading of this beautiful, serene. Is this one of those lakes that's like crystal clear?
Yes,
Looks like
it's a
in the-
glacier, like a glacier lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I just can't imagine that it's warm there most of the time.
So we were there in July, and it was like 70,
Yeah.
75. But it was great.
Well, sell your shorts, but other than that. So you're big into fishing. I think we talked a little bit about that. I'm clearly well versed in fishing as well.
Yeah, you're caught up in the tournament.
Yeah. Oh,
World, for
dude,
sure.
I can't. When I am, you get me on the tournaments. That's all we're talking about. But I'm going to save that for another day. We could. Who's going on this trip with you guys? There's you and Zach.
Well, I told Zach. Zach had talked to me over the weekend, and
This is fresh.
Zach just sponsored the Spring Valley Bass Team, Village Caregiving.
Okay.
I'm serious.
Where do they fish?
They fish all over the state.
My God.
He bought a spot on the jersey that's going to have Village Caregiving's logo on
There's
the jersey.
jerseys?
Yes.
Are they called jerseys?
Yeah, fishing
Okay.
jerseys. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So
Let me tell you another story one time. So, what? We were, those little pedal boats that you
Yeah.
can get, right? So my wife, she is, she is very pregnant at this point with our second child, Emma, and we're out at Greenbow camping, And she's like, let's get one of those little pedal boats. You know, you can pedal all day and just make it like to the other side of this room. I mean, you don't get a lot. So we were out there. My little boy's hanging off the back of this thing, and I'm pedaling like Lance Armstrong. I mean, I'm giving it 110%. We're not going anywhere. Danielle's doing her best. We get out in the water a little ways there. We can still see land. And I'm like, we better turn around. We only got this thing for 2 hours, and I can still see the boat dock from where we are. So we turn this thing around. We start pedaling back, and the local bass fishing club shows up and starts loading into the water. Okay. We looked like we were whitewater rafting in this little vessel that we were in. Okay. I was going to shoot the flares off on this thing. I just knew for sure we were going down. And all I could picture was that scene from Titanic, you know, where I was telling her goodbye. Anyways, that didn't happen, but I've never forgiven the local bass club out at Greenbow for how they did me that day.
Like I said, it's the lakes are as full as ever since COVID.
It's amazing.
It's wild.
Is there a bad day to fish?
The weekends. Yeah.
I didn't know what answer would be to that.
The weekends.
And that's just because it's crowded.
Exactly.
I see. And get out there and bumping the boats.
Yep.
Could we catch all the fish? Is that possible?
In the lake?
I don't know.
Any lake? No.
Okay.
No.
All right. So village caregiving. You work at village care. How long have you been at the Barboursville office?
Right at a year. Like it might be right around my year.
Well, I didn't want to surprise you,
Yeah.
but happy
do you know?
1 year in. No, I have no idea. But let's say it's today. Congratulations. 1 year anniversary.
Thank you. I want to say it's like right now, this time last year.
I remember it was to the date and
Right
time
now.
right now.
Yep.
And you walked in the door.
Yep.
So we timed this specifically for you. Mm-hmm. And your contract was only good for 1 year.
Hopefully you're re-upping it.
So the good news is you got plenty of fishing ahead of. No, I'm just kidding with you. No, man. So what did you do before village caregiving?
So I worked in critical care at Cabell for about a year and a half and quickly learned that was not for me. Just very unhappy, just knew this is not what I wanted to do. So I went to King's Daughters. I had actually had a job in college at King's Daughters as a nurse extern.
Okay.
So I was pretty familiar with it. I went and interviewed for a surgical services position, which was pre-op and recovery.
Okay.
And I did that for a little over 6 years.
Wow. And so you were at bedside during COVID, right? During the early phases of the pandemic.
Yeah, I actually had to revert back to ICU during COVID.
Wow.
I had to go. King's Daughters somehow found out that I had critical care experience, and I had to go back there for 6-7 weeks.
I got you.
My wife worked there at the time.
Yeah.
So I utilized, her as a resource, and it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. That's, that was such a wild time in the world and healthcare in general for nurses.
Yeah. I was furloughed for 3 months.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, there were times where I think people imagined the hospitals were completely overflowed, but there were times in the Ohio Valley where the hospitals were empty.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just not enough for anything to do to a lot of the surgical things. And
yeah, I remember it. I was actually fishing, and I got a call from my boss, and she's like, hey, you can either come to work and eat through your PTO and only work for like emergent surgeries, or we can furlough you for a couple months. And I chose that, and got to spend some time doing other things.
Yeah.
But it was a wild time.
What led you to nursing?
So I was in high school. I didn't really know any better that there was a health professions little course that you could take.
Okay.
I did all the classes. I actually became a certified CNA in high school.
Really?
Yeah. Went to Charleston, took the test, and ultimately went to King's Daughters to work as a nurse extern. So I didn't use the CNA licensure, but went back to King's Daughters, worked as a nurse extern, did CNA tasks, and ultimately got accepted to Marshall, graduated there in 2015, and been doing it ever since.
I got you. Are there nurses in your life? Was there someone in your family that was a nurse, or did you just kind of honestly?
No, my mom does echocardiograms.
Okay.
My dad worked maintenance at St. Mary's, so I was always in the hospital, waiting for them to get off work.
Yeah.
And kind of did when I was in high school, did research on careers, and like I said, started doing the health professions thing in high school, and it just kind of led me to that.
I got you. So a year ago, you show up at Village Caregiving. You knew some folks here, right? There were some connections.
Yeah, so Zach Wellman was one of my childhood friends.
Really? He's so much older than you. How did that happen?
Well, how old is he? I'm 30.
No idea.
I think he's
47?
30. He's either 31 or 32.
Oh, okay.
So we grew up playing sports together.
Yeah, he wasn't very good, if I remember right.
He was good. He was always the biggest. He always threw the hardest.
Yeah.
I think he had like 36 home runs or something. Our
Probably cheated.
12-year-old.
Yeah.
He did use some special bat.
I'm not shocked.
It was like some softball bat with a barrel the size about that long. And he would get up and you would just be terrified that he was going to hit a line drive back at you.
I played kickball with him one day and tried to kill me, and so I don't.
I never did play football with him, thank God.
Well, we could probably spend the rest of the podcast just making fun of Zach Wellman.
We could.
We probably shouldn't with him being in HR and
No,
stuff.
Zach, I do have Zach to thank for getting me this job, though.
That is okay. Well, I reached out to Zach. He said that he had nothing to do with it.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
So it's funny. I saw him at a wedding for one of our good friends. This has been probably, I don't know, 3 years ago, whenever he first started. I mean, he was brand new.
Yeah.
And as far as I knew, he was still an attorney or doing whatever he was doing. And I said, hey, man, how's work? Because I hadn't talked to him in a while. And he's like, well, I'm actually at Village Caregiving now. And I was like, what do you know about caregiving?
Sure.
And he's like, well, I'm doing some stuff in HR. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. He's like, we actually hire nurses. And I was kind of at the point with my current job where I was actively looking.
Yeah.
But nothing ever came available that I was like, okay, because I had a pretty good job, at King's Daughters, working in surgery is not that bad. You have a good schedule. So I only wanted to switch for something that I knew would be better.
Okay.
So Zach was like, we do hire nurses. At the time, I had never heard of Village Caregiving.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, man, if there's ever anything that opens up, please reach out. So he did reach out. I think he had Danielle email me, and she was like, hey, we don't have anything open right now, but we'll keep you in mind. So I went back to King's Daughters, kept doing my thing, and he texted me and was like, hey, we have a spot open now. It's a half nurse, half like director type position. Is this something you'd be interested in? I was like, yeah, I think so. So I met with him, Adam, David, and Jeff Heflin.
Oh, wow.
At 1861.
Yeah.
And, talked with them for probably about 2 hours. And they took me to the office and everything. And
did you know anyone in that group besides?
No.
Okay, so you didn't know Job or anyone at that point.
No.
I got you.
And that was it.
Yeah.
I went back and talked to my wife. And at the time, my wife didn't know anything about Village Caregiving either. And, when you're working in the hospital, you feel like it's a secure job and everything. So, we talked about it and weighed the pros and cons. And I know people have said this on this podcast before, but took a leap of faith and was like, it's worth the risk. And it really has turned out to be more than I could imagine.
Awesome. Well, so we talk about this sometimes on here. We have folks right now that we're constantly recruiting for nurses, for pure nurses, for nurses with DO as well. And so that is, being a male nurse, number one, is it seems we encounter it more and more. I know most recently I was in a major university hospital and there was more male nurses there than the last time I was there. So that's cool. I think we're getting some traction in that field. But to have nurses that are comfortable with the business side of it as well, right? Like a lot of nurses go into nursing for different reasons. I've kind of naturally leaned into the management or business side of it. That's why this has fit really well for me. Was that something that did fit well for you? Was already kind of on the, I guess maybe on the administrative side of it?
Yeah. So, I'd been at King's Daughters for 6 years. I actually had another job offer from King's Daughters, but it wasn't going to start until the summer. And my ultimate goal was to be in the management side of things in the hospital, nursing related, whether that be a nurse manager, compliance, something like that. So that was my, what I had planned on doing. I had thought about going back to school to get, you can go and you can get your nurse management education.
Right.
I thought about doing that. But that was my ultimate goal. So, whenever Zach, reached out to me and I learned more about the position, it kind of fit what I was looking for.
I got you. So if you're in Duluth right now and we're recruiting for a RNDO position and someone's at the hospital in Duluth Medical, the picture just popped up. I have no idea if there's a Duluth Medical. You'd assume so.
Sure.
I'm sure they have a great hospital system there. And someone's thinking about making the jump over, but they're at an established, the premier healthcare provider in that area, and they're looking at Village Caregiving from Barbersville, West Virginia, is opening a branch. What would you tell that nurse if they're in the process right now of interviewing and they catch this podcast? What would you tell that nurse that's thinking about making the jump?
So for me, like obviously going to the home office, I'm sure it's different for, all offices and everything, but just the culture, the work environment has been great. The people, I haven't came across a single Village Caregiving employee that, hasn't been great to me.
Have you met Zach Wellman in HR?
Yeah, easy to talk to. I would just tell them to take the risk, especially with Village Caregiving. Like I think Village Caregiving is going to be on a whole nother level here, and like Jeff said yesterday in that Zoom, in another 10 years, it's probably going to be crazy to see where we're at. And that was probably scary for me, is that I didn't know anything about Village Caregiving. So, I talked to Zach, did a little digging, and found out that it was a very successful, company.
Sure.
So I think just knowing that the trajectory that the company is on is good, safe, secure.
It's always fascinating to me when we dig into a company, whatever that company is. You think of, a premier company, and you think of an Amazon and where it started or something. But if you think of just like a regular brand organization that's kind of, commonplace for everyone, we always think that they start on one of the coast cities and go from there. But there are a ton of companies that, were launched out of Bismarck or, came out of Omaha, and you're like, oh, okay. There are regular towns that launch these massive companies. And that's, Jeff talks about it often. So much of that is, do we win the people game? Do we have the smart, intelligent, talented people? When we scheduled this podcast with you, I was thinking, I knew that, Zach had been the connection to you. There's so many people that when we were up in Fayetteville, West Virginia not long ago, and we were sitting at this restaurant, and Jeff said it was at this table that Zach Wellman came to mind as our HR director. And as a result of that decision they made that day in that restaurant and came up with Zach, there are 3 or 4 people that are absolutely instrumental in the success of our organization that are at the company today because Zach knew someone.
Yeah.
And it's when we think about the folks that in your life that when opportunities come along at Village Caregiving, that you're able to recommend them. So much of it is the people game, winning and connecting with the right people.
Yes. So like it was just chance. I mean, I just lucked into it.
Yeah.
And like Zach likes to say, oh, well, you did the interview. I'm like, well, it really wasn't an interview. Like, I sat down with you and David and Adam was great. I know Adam's not in our office anymore, but they were all great and welcoming me and helping me.
Yeah.
Because it was a big change. Like going from bedside nursing to like staffing, interviewing, and training is now a big part. But yeah, it's been good.
Cool. And then, I always try to ask, anytime we have a nurse on, I always try to ask this question. It's different than what you went to school for, right? There's
Correct.
a lot of skills now that we don't get to use.
Correct.
A lot of the bedside stuff, it's in a different part of the industry than what we're in. Does being a nurse at Village Caregiving still check those boxes that you were trying to check as a nurse?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like I said, doing the training is now kind of like fulfilling my nursing, license role, whatever, however you want to say it. But training people, and using knowledge that I've learned over the years. Because at one time I was a CNA and a nurse extern doing similar tasks to what these people have to do on a day in, day out, basis when they go into people's homes. So,
well, cool, man. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming down. It's always great to talk with a fellow fisherman like yourself. I mean, just a couple guys just out on the water.
Welcome to tag along with me and Zach and experience it if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to climb in my let me think of a bass boat name. Ranger. You can climb in my Ranger. I got a Mercury 225 hanging off the back of it. And then, of course, I only use the Zebco reels.
Oh, okay. We got some learning. We got some
crap. Is there a
training
better,
to do?
Is there a better option than the Zebco 230s?
No, just a different type.
Okay.
Different type of reel.
Well, we're just a couple fishermen talking about fishing over here. So, no, man, I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you do for Village Caregiving.
Well, thank you.
It is huge shoes to fill when you join the nursing staff at the Barbersville office because Jeffrey Heflin is
the
GOAT.
OG.
Yeah, he's top tier. And for you to come in and work alongside him and carry on the things that he's trying to do and the legacy he's built at Barbersville.
I will say he does a fantastic job with the waiver type stuff. I'm not sure there is a more informed person on the waiver program than Jeffrey Heflin.
I'm not putting my name in that. I'm not starting a fight in the state of West Virginia. So good luck to you. No, man. I do appreciate it. Again, thanks for coming down. We end all of these with a cheers. So if you want to grab
All
it
right.
there. In honor of Jeff Stevens.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.